Over the last few weeks, we've encountered roadblock after roadblock. And many people have asked, why don't you just give up? Well, we can't give up. With over 65 organizations and 3,000 letters sent by constituents to legislators, SB1363 is a bill by the people for the people of California. Currently, it's pending in the Assembly Education Committee. SB 1363 has not been set for a hearing. If put for a vote and confirmed, it would encourage school districts to include in their curriculum the contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islander individuals and communities to the economic, cultural, social, and political development of California and the United States. So without a date set, so guys, there's no date set right now, our K through 12 bill will stall and die. And unlike the chair of the Assembly Education Committee, the one legislator holding the scheduling power, Assemblymember Patrick O'Donnell, we will not let this happen. The fight for educational equality is more important now, as this week marks the 40th anniversary of the murder of Vincent Chin. He's a Chinese American man targeted for no other reason but ignorance and racism. Will our legislators let this happen again? Will they turn their back on our AAPI community? Again, I thank you for your support. All right, so to speak first, I invite Mary Nicely, Chief Deputy of California Public Instructions, to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Thank you, APAPA and board member Mary Lou, for inviting CDE here today. My name is Mary Nicely, and I am the Chief Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction and a proud Burmese Asian American. I am honored to represent State Superintendent Tony Thurman to speak in strong support of SB 1363. And I'm proud that the California Department of Education worked diligently with the API School Board Members Association, Karen Karamatsu, and community organizations to ensure a robust selection of AAPI lessons were included in the adopted Ethnic Studies model curriculum. As we wait for the curriculum to be adopted throughout the state, we must continue to work with our schools to lift up our stories, and that is what this legislation will do. There is never a good time to not tell our stories, and now more than ever, we have to. In light of the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes, State Superintendent Thurman continuously committed to addressing AAPI hate, especially with the rise of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we continue to focus on funding anti-racism and anti-bias grants to go to our schools that will prevent and eliminate racism and bias in all California schools and make all public schools inclusive and supportive of all people. We are grateful to the legislature for using our Education to End Hate initiative, which was spurred by anti-Asian hate, to support the funding of these grants. We are thankful for the bipartisan legislation and support of SB 1363 because our families, students, and communities in these divisive times deserve nothing less. Now more than ever, all students must hear about not only the contributions made by Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, from building the Transcontinental Railroad to marching with the United Farm Workers in the fields with Cesar Chavez, but the sad truth of terrible crimes like the Japanese internment. I am proud to be here today, the first Asian American Chief's Deputy of the CDE in its 100-year history. And proud of the strides made by having 3 API constitutional officers, Betty Yee, Fiona Ma, and Rob Bonta, all who support this legislation. Representation matters. Seeing ourselves and having representation in these positions matters. And this needs to be reflected in all areas of study in our schools. Through educating our young people, we can continue to drive the commitment that the superintendent has to use education to end hate, especially at an early age. I look forward to lending further support for the Assembly Committee hearings that we hope will be scheduled. And thank you again for allowing me to speak here today in support of this bill and represent State Superintendent Thurman. Thank you.
This year, APAPA is sponsoring this legislation to incorporate in our school curriculum more knowledge about the magnificent contribution, the fundamental part of the history of this state, contributed by the API community over decades in California. This legislation is very simple. It just gives the opportunity for our schools to incorporate this in their curriculum. What's bitterly disappointing to me is certain members of this legislature trying to covertly, not even in the open, but covertly kill this bill. Why? Because they say it's not strong enough. Well, in committee, I asked one of these members, if you have stronger language, join me. I've asked you to join me as a joint author, not a co-author, a joint author, as well as we invited other members who now seem to be wanting to kill this bill. Join us. Be a part of this effort. And by the way, where have you been over the decades yourselves in your leadership for the API community? Nowhere to be found. And now they have a chance. And now they're going to stifle that chance by not even allowing a hearing on this bill. That's an integral part of the legislative process, ladies and gentlemen. That is an egregious affront to the people of California, to the institution of your legislature. Is that what we have become? I certainly hope not. And what a terrible target for them to put on API citizens who are trying now to strive and make us even greater than we have been. I don't understand it. Let them explain to us why they want to kill this bill in the dark of night. They don't even have the courage to stand up and look us in the eye. I'm very disappointed at that. And when I asked Senator Pan several times, including on the floor of the Senate and in committee, he said the bill's not strong enough. I said, Senator Pan, I've invited you to be a joint author with me. And if you have amendments, I'll accept them on the spot. He stared off into space and had not one word to say. Is that showing leadership for the API community? No. That's stabbing in the back. And I don't understand it. If he's to represent us, he should be at the forefront, not in the back door with the door locked. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important and significant day where we continue to move ahead or we have to pause and fight back. And what I appreciate about APAPA, they stand forth for what they believe in and for the API community. That's the greatness of this organization that Mr. C.C. Yuan dreamed and conceived of and has built over the decades. We've got to keep it alive, ladies and gentlemen. Continue to communicate to your legislators, including certain key ones who are trying to stonewall and kill this bill in the dark of night. We must not, on behalf of our Asian Pacific Islander American citizens, let that happen. Glad to be here with you. Glad to fight the good fight for the API community.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Medina, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of Mayor Darrell Steinberg, who unfortunately was unable to make it, to support Senate Bill 1363, which has 12 legislative authors, 7 Democrat and 5 Republican, and over 60 diverse organizations and supporters. We are supporting Asian American History Bill K through 12 in this great state of California, a state where diversity and inclusion matters. This is a true grassroots movement, and our voices should be heard. We asked the Assembly Education Committee to schedule a hearing for this important bill, which addresses Asian hate crimes to its core, through education and ensuring our youth, many of them here today, will learn about the great contributions of the AAPI communities. Ignorance grows to hate. Let's target hate at its core. We look forward to seeing this bill set for an Assembly Education hearing in the next week. Thank you.
Nelson Mandela once said, that a person isn't born hating another person because of the color of their skin. Hate is something that must be learned. And if hate can be learned, then a person can also learn to love. Because love comes more naturally to the human spirit. As somebody who has personally prosecuted hate crimes, as someone who was the supervisor of the hate crime unit at the Sacramento DA's office, as somebody who's an immigrant and a refugee who had to learn English as a second language, education is where it's at. Education is important at prevention and intervention. And so I would advocate and I would argue for and I would ask the 1363 be passed, because that's how we're going to make progress in terms of stopping and ending hate crimes as well. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Ardell Harrison, First Vice President of the NAACP, and it's a pleasure to be here to stand with CC and APAPA. This bill is very important because the educational component to allow people to understand what this nation has been built on, and we know who helped build this nation. The Sacramento NAACP branch has stood with APAPA and its great founder, CC Yuan, for many years, and we will continue to do so. We all organizations who serve the community, we are nonpartisan. This SB Bill 1363 is simple, and we are sending a message that the history and culture of minority communities and Asian American communities here today, that it matters. It's important. It stands a legacy in how we move forward. When Asian hate is at its all-time high these past 2 years, we rallied the NAACP with APAPA across the country and in unity against this hate movement. It is a movement that includes people from all generations and backgrounds. Look at our youth and the students here. Listen to the teacher, Mary Nicely, who serves in the highest Asian American position of the education of our great state. This bill is also not partisan. It welcomes all Democrats, Republicans to join it from the beginning. We all vote and have a voice, and we all should be heard. The Assembly Education Committee should set this SB 1363 for a hearing and not play partisan politics. We challenge them and other political officials to do the right thing. The NAACP will continue to stand for justice and continue to stand against hate. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the leadership of APAPA and to Senator Nielson for this opportunity to speak in solidarity of this bill. Again, my name is Dr. Tecoy Porter. I'm the senior pastor of the Genesis Church in Sacramento and the founding president of the Sacramento chapter of the National Action Network. You know, we are living in a day where we are finally acknowledging and recognizing the value and voices of all people, no matter race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, all of which is past due and earned. We have made progress and have come a long way, but we are here today because we still have a long way to go. Unfortunately, there are those who believe in maintaining the status quo by keeping the contributions of certain groups silent. Members of the API community are an integral part of our history, and highlighting their contributions to California and the United States should be encouraged in our public school system. SB 1363 ensures that their contributions, which have greatly shaped our state, their struggles, perseverance, and overall involvement in our nation's history will be highlighted and taught to California's children. And I am here to stand in solidarity with our API community, demanding that Assemblymember Patrick O'Donnell to allow this bill to be heard in committee. As an African American, I know what it means to have our efforts to be overlooked and what it means to have to fight to be recognized. Fortunately, we have made progress, with most recently the recognition of Juneteenth as a part of American history. And just like Black history is America's history, Asian Pacific Islander history is also our history and deserves to be learned and celebrated. The more we know about each other, the better we can move forward together. Assembly Patrick O'Donnell, let's get this done. No justice, no peace.
Thank you all for being here today. Hello, my name is Omar Altamimi. I am a policy and advocacy coordinator from CAIR, California, or from CAIR Sacramento Valley in Central California, the chapter. CAIR has been in the region since 2002. A large number of our constituency that we represent are Asian identifying individuals, and we hope today that we can come in and represent them. To start off, I'd like to share a sad and shameful statistic. Hateful rhetoric and unsubstantiated lies have caused 9,000 hate crimes to be committed from March 2020 to June 2021, targeting our AAPI community. Fundamentally, this must change. How to create that fundamental change, it starts at education. How we educate our students contributes directly to this. And so we're honored to be here today to ask for that to happen. You know, we can't just tokenize and we can't just rally and we can't just tokenize what we appreciate, whether it be cultural towns, gardens, and so on and so forth from a community. We must also not betray their trust and not betray the work that they do for our communities and the contributions that they've created for our state and our nation as a whole in history. And for that, we must begin to educate them on the contributions and on the contributions and on the history of API contributions to our state. For that reason, we come here today and we'd like to close out by affirming and recalling for the passing of the bill and for other bills that introduce API education as a necessity for our K-12 schools. Thank you again, and have a great one.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Assemblymember Stephen Choi from Orange County. Thank you, everyone standing here today, joining us. Encouraging Education Committee Chairperson O'Donnell to agendize this very important 6313 Assembly Bill 1363 as one of the principal authors. This bill is very, very important. There's no excuse why it is not being agendized, because it's not strong enough. What a joke. Let the committee members hear of the stories and let them decide, not by the chair one person. This is what is going on here at the Assembly and at the Capitol level. Chairperson of each committee decides what bill will be heard or what bill won't be heard. This Asian curriculum K-12 being encouraged to be taught to our children, that's very, very important. If we made it from the beginning as a mandate, that would be excuse for them not to agendize it. This is encouraging all the school districts based upon their need and the time availability, the curriculum will be introduced. If this is not enough, later on we can strengthen it by mandating it. But we do have AB 101 already, ethnic studies to be taught at the high school levels before graduation. And since that is dealing with the entire ethnic community and the minority studies, it is going to be very difficult to cover entire history that we make up in this country. Asian Pacific Islanders' contribution and history has to be a big chapter of that curriculum. And this bill 1363, authored by Senator Jim Nielson, is exactly aiming for focusing upon Asian American cultures and the contributions in this country that we have built this country together. We strongly encourage this bill to be heard at the committee and to be voted on and eventually pass. Thank you.
So our final speaker tonight is Evan Yuan. He is an engaged student leader with the Student Coalition for Racial Equality. Evan?
Hello everyone. So I may not have a very fancy position or title as many of my esteemed guests here might have, but what I do have is a voice. Good afternoon everyone. I stand before you all today as a student, an advocate, a proud Asian American. I'm here to address an issue that I believe needs no introduction. Asian American Pacific Islander hate has skyrocketed since the pandemic began. I'm not going to read you the data. The numbers simply speak for themselves. Our families torn apart, our elders targeted, the number of our students too afraid to even go to school. What I am going to do is to make known that this trend is nothing new. The coronavirus is not the reason my community is being attacked. Long has our history been plagued by racial prejudice and malice. Most of you in the crowd will know of the stories of Japanese Americans internment during World War II. Fewer of you will know the tragedies of Vincent Chin, Chol Soo Lee, or even locally up in Davis, the name of Tong Hai Huyn, a high schooler murdered in cold blood. I have to admit, had it not been for very fortunate meetings with just the right people, I too would never have been aware of these historical events or individuals. That is to say, the California educational system has failed me. But not only that, it has failed every student who has ever passed through our schools, as well as every student who will pass through our schools. By continuously denying us the opportunity to learn about a history that is uniquely ours, one that is uniquely American, we are isolated from the rest of our peers, and we are treated as others. Recent events have only served to pull back a curtain. What is now revealed is the ugly truth of a bitter and historically divided America. As the old adage goes, history repeats itself, and recent events only affirm this statement. Without a comprehensive historical education, the crimes our communities will face today only fade into the footnotes of our future textbooks, and our struggles forgotten. Now more than ever, we finally have an opportunity to build a future. With SB 1363, yet this bill is not even being heard in the Educational Committee. It is being denied a democratic forum, the opportunity for it to be voted upon. This is the very antithesis of the founding principles our great nation was built upon. Do not let this bill die here in the darkness. Let this be clear. It's not an issue that only affects one group of people. A lack of education, an increase in hate crimes. These are issues that affect all of us. How can we expect to dream of a better world we can all live in if not everyone is included in its making? So I say to you now, celebrate our history, celebrate our legends, our heroes, our cultures, our contributions. Fill our classrooms with the names of Larry Itliong, Mabel Lee, Patsy Mink, among numerous others. Let the world know that Asian American Pacific Islander history is American history. Past 1363.
So thanks again, Evan, for reminding us why we are here, why this bill is needed. He is our future. Our children, our students of API communities are our future. So we ask, Assemblymember Education Chair O'Donnell, please schedule SB 1363 for hearing so it can be put for a vote. We are fighting for our future. So I'm going to wrap up by acknowledging our co-authors for this bill. So Senator Jim Nielson, Assemblymember Stephen Choi, principal co-author. Assemblymember Jim Cooper, principal co-author. Here are several of our co-authors. Senator Dave Cortese. Senator Bill Dodd. Senator Susan Rubio. Assemblymember Philip Chen. Assemblymember Ken Cooley. Assemblymember Vince Fong. Assemblymember Adam Gray. Assemblymember Kevin McCarty. And lastly, Assemblymember Janet Nguyen.